everyone, welcome back to Class with Cass. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cassandra, and I got into every single college I applied to, including all 8 Ivy League universities. So speaking of kind of the overachiever model and someone who is also gunning for all 8 Ivy League universities, today we're going to talk about Devi Vishwakumar. Many of you guys know her from the Netflix series Never Have I Ever. Devi is an overachiever. She's very high strung, and from basically when she was a little kid, it's been her dream to go into Princeton. So today we're going to talk about her college admissions journey, and yes, heads up, there are spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched Never Have I Ever season 4, go and hit that on Netflix right now. So the final season of this show pretty much just dropped on Netflix, and for those of you who don't know, it follows Devi and her friends 4 years of high school, so this 4th season is their senior year, and of course that means college admissions. So stop here if you haven't watched it yet, because there are spoilers. Okay, you've been warned. But a major plot point of season 4 is that Devi only applies to the Ivy League colleges. Obviously not a good idea, and this bites her in the butt because she gets rejected from every single school and waitlisted by her dream school, Princeton. But regardless of the outcome, whether it was good, in her case it was bad, regardless, I want to tell you as your friendly neighborhood college essay coach, do not do this. Applying only to the Ivy Leagues is a terrible idea. Even only applying to schools that are your reach schools, also a bad idea. Because even if you were the most awesome student at your school, you were number 1 in your school, if you think you're basically a shoo-in because, you know, your dad went there, if you were like 10 years old and you made it to Forbes 10 under 10 list, it doesn't matter how awesome and excellent you are because there is no guarantee that you will get in. Devi's school counselor says to her in the series, "You're an excellent student, but those schools have tens of thousands of applications from excellent students." At this point, it's a numbers game. Devi's counselor is correct. So luck and timing and things like that also factors into your admissions. Who's to explain why you got into one school over another? We will never truly know. And maybe, for example, you're a dancer and this year they had enough dancers and they were actually looking for a microbiologist to fill your spot. Or maybe your admissions officer had a terrible day while reading your application. Obviously, we hope that the process is more holistic than that, but you really never know. So it's just extremely risky to apply only to your reach schools, especially if your reach schools are the Ivy Leagues, no matter how cool you are. They're called reach schools for a reason. So what I'll be doing in this video is evaluating Devi's process as she's applying to colleges, as well as evaluate one of the essays that she submitted as an additional kind of like letter or supplement of interest to Princeton. Okay, so back to Devi in Never Have I Ever. She gets rejected, she gets waitlisted, she is having a meltdown. She calls up her rep at Princeton, the one that she's been in touch with, and asks like, "Is there anything that I can do?" And her rep tells her your best shot is to fill out a supplemental essay. Yeah, chances are very slim of you getting off the wait list. Indeed, if you look at the numbers for these kind of schools, they're kind of crazy small, but you still have a shot. So this is the essay. So I'm going to read the essay that Devi ended up writing for this supplement essay. And after I read it, then we'll break it down together. "A long time ago, someone told me to write my college essay about my father, but I didn't want to because it felt exploitative and wrong. However, I don't think there's a way to really know me without knowing him. I should back up and tell you that my father died my freshman year of high school. He died right in front of me at an orchestra concert. I was 15 years old and I watched the person I loved most in the world disappear right before my eyes. But I don't want to focus on his death. It was how he lived that really shaped me. He was a person who had unending joy and optimism about the world. Princeton was actually a dream he and I came up with together. I think I've so fiercely held on to Princeton so I could keep holding on to him. But if you don't accept me, I'll be okay because I can't lose him. He's always with me. But if you do happen to find a spot for me, I promise I won't take it a second of it for granted because I'd be living that dream not just for me alone. So, spoiler alert, in the show, this essay that she writes, supplement, is effective because she ends up getting off the waitlist and into Princeton. Now, is it because of this essay? It might not just be because of this essay. As we all know, Devi is an excellent student. It could be that, plus, her demonstrating her continued interest in the school, her grades, her extracurriculars, but certainly this essay did play a part of it. Now, some schools do offer this chance to write supplemental essays or letters of interests if you are waitlisted. And it varies case by case how you're supposed to format these. I would look into, if this happens to you, I would look into that school's, what they usually require, what are they looking for, because some schools might want more achievement-based like updates, like, dear admissions people, I just got this scholarship, or I got into this foundation, or I got into this program that happened after you hit submit on your regularly timed applications. Other schools might want more of like a story driven, like, why are you still interested in our school? It varies case by case. I have a friend whose sister got waitlisted, and she wrote her letter of interest actually expressing her desire to be with her sister at that same school. So really, it can be a lot of many different things. But today, I kind of want to approach Devi's supplemental essay as if it was the original essay that she wrote, because basically her Princeton rep tells her, like, your comm app essay was very well written, very academic, had multiple uses of the word dichotomy, but didn't show who she was. And she tells Devi, like, I want to know why you are who you are. And she pushes Devi to like dig a little bit deeper. I would say this is really good advice. If your essay does include the word dichotomy, or plethora, or juxtapose, or multifaceted, or myriad, almost like immediate red flag. And let me explain why. It's not to say that you can't use these words, but unless they're in your normal vocabulary, I would probably advise you to avoid these words because they're often overused, especially in the college essay context, and it kind of signals to admissions officers like you're trying to make yourself sound really smart and impress them with like big words. It might also make the essay come across as like more formal and not personal enough, and because of its formality, it doesn't feel like alive, it doesn't feel specific to you. And your story just might not jump off the page because it doesn't have the X factor, which is you. So Devi's rep also mentions that her essay is like too academic. Now, there is a space for academic language in essays, but probably not your Common App essay. I'm thinking like maybe the supplement essay. A lot of schools ask you to demonstrate like something that you're curious in academically. Basically, they want to test your intellectual curiosity. Now, that's a place where you can get really academic, especially as you dive deeper into the jargon of whatever area you're interested in pursuing. There, you can go ham on the academic language, but your comm app is really to show who you are, and maybe you are at your core extremely academic person and you use these big words all the time, but if that's not you, I would avoid them. So why is Devi's additional supplement essay effective? Well, it gets to the heart of who she is. She writes about her dad and displays honesty and vulnerability about like why she actually didn't want to write about him in the first place. I would say if Devi were to redo her original Common App essay and write it on the same topic, I'd say actually that's a pretty good place to begin. You could maybe bait the reader into thinking, oh, this is another like kind of sob story essay about a family tragedy, but then actually surprising them with this reluctance to write this exact story. I think there's some element of surprise in the way you could open up this essay. Then Devi gives us some context about how her dad died, which was right in front of her eyes at an orchestra concert. I would want her to add that this is an orchestra concert that she was performing at. I think that's a really key detail because it just underscores how much this affected her life, her playing abilities, her performance in school, her social performance at school, as it does in the series. It affects everything she does in the series. I think her instinct to not dwell too much on this moment is correct because at the end of the day, her dad's death is not the focus of the essay. It's actually more about how he lived that shaped her. She writes that he was a person who had unending joy and optimism about the world. So if this were her Common App essay, I would ask her to write that in action. Like, I want to see him be this person full of joy and optimism. I want to get anecdotes, personal stories that, you know, I can immerse myself in, and I can see how was he this incredibly optimistic person. For example, like maybe she tells the story of how he bought the motorcycle, which, you know, played a big part in the series. Or maybe she tells us about his tennis obsession and why John McEnroe is like the person who is narrating Davy's life in her head. Like that would be a fun anecdote. I just want her at the end of the day, like to show and not tell about her dad. And the second step after that, which is equally, if not more important, is we need to understand why she's telling us these stories about her dad. How do her dad's anecdotes and stories relate to her? How have they shaped her into the person who she is today? Basically, why do we need to hear these stories to understand Devi as a person? So it's really important to not get lost in describing another person because at the end of the day, colleges are admitting you and not, in this case, like her dad. Then Devi explains that Princeton is a dream that they came up with together. Okay, so this part obviously wouldn't belong in a Common App essay. This part would belong in like a why us, why Princeton kind of essay. Let's say she does talk about this in that essay. I would actually love for her to include the story of how they came up with it together. On the show, there's a flashback. They show young Devi asking her father, like, Dad, is there a school for princesses? And he laughs and says, no, but there is a school called Princeton. And that's kind of how they came up with the dream together. And I think that's like a pretty lovely, pretty sweet anecdote that she can put in since she does, you know, reference that in here. However, I do wonder, and this is a genuine question, I don't have the answer for this, like if that's a popular thing to write about. I don't think Princeton has a why us essay, but if it were, I wonder if like the misconception that Princeton is a college for princes is popular, because that's what I thought when I was a kid. And I actually took a similar approach in an essay that I ended up not using, but it was for Rice University. I didn't end up applying, but I'll read it to you here. As a girl who thought the carpool lane was meant only for cars with pools in the back, when I first heard of Rice University from my friend's older sister, I immediately pictured a school composed of rice fields and students analyzing rice. As I did more and more research, I realized my vision wasn't far from the truth. Granted, while there aren't rice factories at Rice, the spirit remains the same. Collaboration, research, advanced technology, innovation to determine the best way of growing a plant and beyond, telling stories, discovering a diverse America, learning a new language, studying quarks, and that's as far as I got. The rest that I wrote here was like note to myself, write more about Rice, the professors, open course, closed course, etc. Specifics about English, theater, or film, Rice, here I come. So not the greatest, but there is something, I wonder how original or unoriginal kind of opening that essay like that would be, especially in Rice's case and in Princeton's case, and also like things like Brown. So to celebrate Devi getting into Princeton, I will be releasing a video where I reveal my own essays that got me into Princeton. So hit subscribe, that's coming soon. Stay tuned for that. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'm Cassandra, and I will see you guys next time on Class with Cass. Cheers.